Establishing battlefield control. Stand by. Battle control off.
world. There is a very unstable situation on the ground that is unfolding going to have to act if we want to live in a different world.
There is a very unstable situation that is unfolding very quickly. They say history is written by the victor, so I don't mind playing the villain. Got a pretty girl to the throne. 'Cause the memories come and I can't even run. I gotta win this chance to prove to me I can. I'll divide and I will conquer. I will battle like a warrior. If I'm dying, getting stronger. I'll divide and I will conquer. You're like all I ever wanted, but couldn't afford. I know you like feeling haunted. Would a pretty girl leave you bored? 'Cause the memories come and I can't even run. I gotta win this chance to prove to me I can. I'll divide and I will conquer. I will battle like a warrior. If I'm dying, Thank you.
Right, shall we begin?
Oh, I don't see why we should.
Like, ever. Let's just give up now.
Hello and welcome to World 1 Stage 1. I am Simon,
I'm Jack.
And I'm Troy.
and I already need to pause this shit. Hang on. No, I don't. Awesome.
Are we starting again, or...?
No, it's cool. I can edit that bit out. So, we are here this week to talk about...
Pregnant pause.
Thought you were going to say pregnant porn then. I was like, well, we don't have to, but...
Alright, it wasn't my idea, so I wasn't going to introduce it,
Today, it's this week, day, whatever, we will be talking about the Command and Conquer series.
but we shall.
Affirmative.
Man, that joke. There are so many lines that are going to infuriate. I mean, just send our players through the roof. If at some point, you would just interject with low power.
I'm trying to resist the urge of adding, you must construct additional pylons.
Wasn't Command and Conquer, wasn't it?
Don't cross the streams, that was StarCraft.
All right, I'm having a
Don't
flashback
cross
problem.
those two together, because, oh man, the mess you'll get.
Right, because I think this is an episode where you two are the Nintendo fans and I am the Sega fan, to put it in context with our last episode.
What did we do our last episode on?
Pokemans.
Consoles.
Oh, consoles! Wait, is the console one gone live yet?
Yes.
Has
Oh,
it?
I was confused.
That's because you've been without the internet.
I've been living off borrowed internet, hoarding it in the streets wherever I find it in rubbish tins and like next to alleyways.
And from bees!
No, we've established that internet doesn't come from bees.
It's worth mentioning that my cohorts have moved house, but they have no internet, so they are the digital equivalent of hobos.
We will get internet on next Wednesday.
That means nothing to our listeners, Jack.
So by the time this episode goes out, we will be able to listen to it, probably.
What,
So-
tomorrow?
Yeah,
This
I was gonna say,
episode
put
goes
it
out
out
tomorrow.
Put it out late or early.
This episode goes out tomorrow.
Well, we are a Wednesday show and we're recording on Tuesday.
Holy shit, today's Tuesday.
Yes.
Wow, cool. So by the time we get this episode, by the time you listen to not this episode, but the episode after this, we'll have the internet.
Which, ironically, might not feature you guys because you were unavailable to record because you'd moved.
Yes,
Because we're playing with time.
we are
Yeah, this is-
messing with time.
This is bizarre, but every single show we do always starts with a brief recap on why the hell we can't remember what the hell is going on. I used
Does
to
it?
tell a lot of it. It does. There's always like a sort of a 10-minute intro of just, we're a bunch of flids, and this is what we did last time, and this is why, and here's what happened when my shoe got gum on the bottom, and then there was a chase, and then I bought some Coke, and Lidl's was closed, so I had to go to Iceland's, but they don't sell the rice that I like. And then I came round to Simon's, and we've recorded a show, which this week is about X.
Cool. So let's just engage the chronosphere and speed up through that whole story.
The chronosphere doesn't speed up time, Jack.
It stops
Jeez.
time?
No.
What? What does it do then? I'm confused.
A white hole.
What does the chronosphere do?
I have no idea.
That's not really relevant at this point.
Fine! I'll come back to that
Why
then.
isn't it?
God damn you all.
So, Command and Conquer.
Or-
Troy.
Oh, so you're asking me. Am I brief rundown on the series or the concept of the game? Or
Well, everyone here has played a Command and Conquer game at some point, right?
Yeah.
all three of us have, but
Yeah.
we've got to assume that some of our listeners might be, game lepers.
Careful.
And- I said game lepers.
I know. I was just urging caution.
Right. Some of our listeners might not have played Command and Conquer.
Right.
It's heinous to
But
imagine.
we have, so I'm just making sure that we are on a slightly more even footing.
Yes.
Cool. All right then.
Okay.
So, Command and Conquer, it is...
Well, before we get started, I must stop you there. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's now following us on Twitter and everyone who said hi to us on the forums on Simply Syndicated. It's nice to have a warm welcome.
Yay!
Sure,
Thank
Jack
you.
and Troy will join you as soon as they
As
have
soon as we
internet.
can.
Absolutely.
And I want to make a point, actually. I very nearly went another week without reading out one of the letters I was meant to read out last time when we did some
I do
listener
remember
feedback.
that. Yep.
Should we do some listener feedback now?
Let's, because we have one from Lava Lamp Bamboo, aka Eddie,
Hello, Eddie.
who very carefully wrote to us properly with "How are you, gentlemen?" as his opening line and everything, and we ignored him, and I feel
Oh.
terrible.
Well, to be fair, me and Troy didn't
We
ignore
didn't
you.
ignore him. You're the one, but which means Simon is the one who quite deftly skipped over that email.
You ignored him, but you are blameless for your intent to ignore him because there was none.
As without malice as forethought.
I, however, am at fault. I hold up my hand, mea culpa. So we shall come to his letter now.
Excellent.
Eddie writes, "How are you, gentlemen?
All your base suffer belong to us.
I've been listening to the old podcast for a while now, and only just realised you had new episodes. Welcome back." See, this is how long we've been ignoring this episode, this letter for. Wasn't too sure about Troy at first, but he endeared himself to me with his utterly fantastic Riddler impression. So, more Troy Riddler. And then in brackets,
Triddler?
yes, that's what he's written.
Yes!
No!
Oh, Eddie uses portmanteaus. You're now my favourite of our three listeners.
Just a few questions.
Oh god, no. Sorry, I'm very bad at answering questions.
Do you think LA Noire could bring in a new era of more sensible open-world gameplay?
I think that would require us, first of all, finding out some more about LA Noire.
Like what that is.
So there's your answer
I
there.
didn't want to straight away put my hand up and go, derp! But LA Noire, I don't know what it is, so we'll have to investigate.
I would also argue that a more sensible open-world gameplay is already here between Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption.
Neither of which I've played, so I can't really...
Sensible?
Yeah,
It depends. It depends where you draw the line on sensible, I
I
suppose.
suppose
It's
so,
more
but
realistic.
they both felt more sensible to me than a lot of the previous open-ended games.
Jumping out of an aircraft, landing ass crack first on a sunbather in Saints Row
Saints
2
Row 2.
was the... Yeah,
For example.
for example.
Also, how excited are you for the new Monkey Island 2 Special Edition? Me, I'm salivating right now, and then he's put another thing in parenthesis. Jack, make a joke here.
He's salivating right now?
Yes. That's not a joke, that's a repetition.
No, that's, I was just making sure. Quap face. That's my joke.
Wow, perfect score.
Quality material.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mustache, I've got splices to kill, for which I
Yay!
salute you, sir. So,
Awesome.
we have dealt with Eddie's letter. I
No,
do
we
apologise.
No, we goddamn haven't.
No. What we've basically done is gone to Eddie's letter, listened to his points, and given him a resounding...
He's asked us what we think about LA Noire and open-ended gameplay. We've said, what the hell is that? He's then said, what do you think of Monkey Island 2? Make a joke. And I said, crap face. And also, what was the other one?
Yeah, well done.
We're terrible people.
We've not dealt with poor Eddie's letter, we've dealt to it.
Right.
Yes.
I suppose, okay, LA Noire, seeing as neither of you apparently have heard of it, it's a Rockstar game,
Okay,
and it's a sort of film noir detective story.
sounds good.
It does sound very good, in that open-ended style that Rockstar have made famous, so I am actually really looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
As long as it's in black and white.
I assume, from what I've seen of it, it's not going to be black and white, but it's going to have that muted feel of the early colour film noirs.
Oh, okay, cool.
Very nice.
And yes, thoroughly excited for all of the remakes of the old LucasAid classics, LucasArts classics, Monkey Island numbering very highly amongst them.
Oh, yes.
I've played the high-def version of the original Monkey Island, but I haven't actually played the second one just yet.
How was the first one?
Really, really good looking, and I love the opening, which opens in the original 8-bit graphics, complete with the classic original MIDI theme tune,
Yay.
and then wipes the new HD graphics over the top of it, so it's a reveal as the music goes full orchestral. and it's wonderful.
That's
it's a lovely
fantastic.
opening.
Yeah.
And it's just the classic gameplay, but with beautiful new hand-drawn art.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. It is available on Steam.
Yeah, we got the mention out early this time.
Yep. Because I think Steam's going to come up again later, isn't it? Because I do believe Command & Conquer is available on Steam.
I think so. Oh, some of the later ones.
Some of the later ones, yes.
I don't actually remember.
Let's find
I
out.
don't remember if they are.
I know Command & Conquer 3 and 4 are.
I did the unthinkable and purchased. I purchased the game on disc the other day.
On disc?
On disc, physical format. I didn't.
We're not in the days of the caveman, you know.
I know, but my internet bees won't come through the window to my computer anymore.
Yeah,
so,
we've decided that the internet is carried by bees. Skype told us this was true because Skype is the only thing that can actually still access the internet somehow.
my Skype is very, very special. What it does is to open, show me my friends list, and then tell me I can talk to them. It's like, Skype, I can't actually do that. And
You're connected to the internet!
I'm not connected.
You have the internet bees!
Let's not do this. Let's not do this. Needless to say, the bees aren't in my computer, so I have no...
You have a bee! You have friend bee! Mike bee! He on your Facebook!
Ooh.
But yes, 3 and 4 available
Okay.
on the Steams.
That's what I said! Yay! I was right! For
However,
once.
if you're looking for a really good deal, which, for once, I'm not going to immediately pimp Steam, Command & Conquer, The First Decade, which is pretty much all of the Command & Conquer series to date, minus like Red Alert 3 and Command & Conquer 4 and what have you, with all of the expansion packs. So it's something like 12 games worth of content, all in one box. And that's what kind of fueled this, ooh, Command & Conquer. Because now I've played them all. Hadn't played Renegade before, and...
What
well,
did you think?
It's a bit samey.
Yeah.
To just hit Renegade on the head. It was a very nice novelty, and it had Odo in it. You say his
Yay,
name, Jack.
Rene Aubergine!
René Auberginois.
There we go. It had Paul in it. So that was kind of the selling point for
Do you mean Admiral
Renegade.
Cartwright?
Yeah. Yeah.
God damn it.
I fucking know. But no, I decided I was going to start from the beginning and work my way forward in time with The First Decade. And
So let us hasten this conversation back to the point where I interrupted to do some listener mail. What is Command & Conquer?
right, Command & Conquer is not the first of the kind of base building, resource gathering games. I believe even StarCraft come before it, didn't it?
I think you're
And
right, yes.
Warcraft came before that.
Oh, Warcraft. Oh, good point. Yeah. So Command and Conquer was by no means a new sort of a revolution on gaming, as it were. But what it was is I'll just break down gameplay. You have a base, which you build up from scratch. So you have a construction yard, you have power facilities,
But
you
never
have
enough.
Never enough power, especially when your enemy starts shooting at these power facilities. Things like barracks, war factories, which build tanks and stuff like that. And your base slowly expands with associated defenses and what have you as you gain money units. Now, these change depending on the Command & Conquer universe that you're playing in, because there are 3 now, if you count generals.
Oh, yes.
So there are a couple of different... I think one of them is just dollars. You've got Tiberium credits, and you've got dollars in Red Alert and what have you as well. But the general idea is that you amass resources, build troops and base with them, and then go and smash your opponent in the head with them. He, of course, at the same time is trying to do the same thing to you, so the balance between defense and attack has to be struck. So it's quite a tactical game, depending on kind of how you like to play. There are different sides, factions, units, and abilities, especially as the games progress in complexity, and obviously the year in which they came out has a big deal to do with that. But in a nutshell, that's Command & Conquer.
Now, the first base-building real-time strategy of this genre that I remember playing was actually Dune 2, back in 1992, which predates Warcraft. StarCraft does not predate Command & Conquer, not by a few years,
Oh, wow, okay.
but Warcraft does. But Dune 2 is the earliest one I can remember that involved, proper base-building and the same kind of unit control system we're all used to. And it's worth pointing out that was actually a Westwood game.
Ah,
So they sort of laid down the pattern back then.
okay.
So Command & Conquer wasn't the first, but they've had their fingers in the pies for a little
For a while.
while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Okay,
wasn't
so
the first, it wasn't even their first.
Yeah.
It's definitely the granddaddies of the genre, and a lot. I mean, if you were to look at, real-time strategy games, pretty much from that point forward, you can almost always spot that Command and Conquer influence. There was-
Well, there's the two. You either feel like it's a Warcraft clone or a Command & Conquer clone.
yeah,
Weirdly enough, when we were looking at that original Command & Conquer, it doesn't have to look like a Warcraft clone. There's just the shape of the power plants and everything like that. There's sort of weird donut-style buildings and everything like that.
I think you're insane. But that's on an unrelated topic.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine.
I don't know. There is. I would say to some degree that Dawn of War and Company of Heroes start to break away a little from the sort of the more traditional resource gathering, base building game. Specifically, I was going to say World of Warcraft 2, and then hit myself. Dawn of War 2. Sorry,
Oh, very much so, yeah. That's not even a real-time strategy game in my book.
it's an RPG of sorts, isn't it?
It's more moving into what's commonly being referred to as real-time tactics, which is taking it down into a smaller scale, not so much relying on the micromanaging of base building and resources and construction queues, but just the troops and the strategic decisions on the battlefield, which is, I'd say, what Dawn of War is approaching.
Yeah. Okay. So to give you, to give the other option from Command & Conquer or Warcraft, there are these new breed of games which are kind of breaking away from the old mold. And a lot of people, if you ask them now, kind of, oh, Command & Conquer, how does it hold up? Well, they have been making the same game for about 10 years, which is why kind of the personality of each game comes into play a lot, because
Much more like 15 years.
it is now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because remember, the first decade didn't cover all the games.
No. Oh, my God. Now I
There
feel
are,
old.
what, 3 games they brought out since the end of the first decade?
Yeah,
so
but
yeah,
they're
they've been
not...
going for longer than that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And Westwood, of course, has since gone the way of the dodo.
Who does them now, then?
EA.
Like so many companies, including Maxis, which I discussed yesterday, but you'll probably hear about at a later date, dear
Because
audience.
of their involvement with... I won't spoil it because that episode won't have come out yet.
Well, the show was about Maxis
Oh,
more
okay,
than
cool.
anything, and all of the sim games. But yeah, just like Maxis, Westwood were absorbed into the horrible tar pit
I
that
don't
is
know.
EA.
I will say recently, over the last kind of 2 years, EA's quality of gaming has shot through the roof.
Really?
I don't know. I
Shot
I
through
would
their
think so.
roof.
Shot
Examples you can cite?
through- well, Red Alert 3 is one off the
Which
top of my head.
is the survivors of Westwood rather than EA.
Still an EA game. NHL 10.
The NHL games have always been strong, and I've never counted EA Sports as really being part of the main
EA.
EA
Okay.
parenthood.
Really? They're called EA Sports?
Yeah, that's my point. They're a different company.
Yeah.
They are their own publisher, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I actually can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but every time I've seen an EA game recently, Sims 3 comes to mind. It seems like they are getting better.
As they slowly devour other companies.
Because what you're looking at is EA is dragged upwards slightly in its average quality, but the product of each company they absorb, the quality goes down.
I see
So
where you're coming
Sims
from.
3 is not as good as a pure Maxis Sims 3 could have been, but it's better than most other EA games, dragging EA's quality up, but Maxis's output down. Same could be said to go for the new Command & Conquers. If Westwood had been left to their own devices, we
'Cause
might have got better games.
I've got to say, I wasn't that entirely bowled over by Red Alert 3. Music was fantastic.
And some of the video was hilarious because
'Cause
it's so
Tim
cheesy.
Curry. Oh,
Yes.
it always is cheesy, but the
Oh, I
addition,
know,
the
but that's
addition
my
of
point.
Tim Curry, George Takei, just
See, it was kind of thinking of, because I've completely lost. I had an idea of how to introduce it, because you were talking about video, and it's like Command & Conquer's always used was it full motion video,
Yep.
with the exception of Renegades, which decided that in-game graphics was the best way to go, and
not with those graphics.
not with those graphics it wasn't. But full motion video has always been kind of a staple of the Command & Conquer series, and it wasn't until, if I recall correctly, Red Alert 2, because you had obviously original Command & Conquer, Red Alert, and then the expansion packs, but Red Alert 2 is really where Westwood stopped taking the games ultra seriously.
Yeah.
It wasn't, no more was it a kind of, this is quite a serious tactical game. This is all very, we got to present war as it is. No. This was a bunch of guys going, right, the Soviets are our superpower. We've basically made a James Bond plot as an RTS.
Now bring on the giant nuclear-powered squids.
Yeah. Bring
It's even more preposterous than Bond.
barely more
Casino
preposterous.
Royale style, maybe.
Moonraker.
Moonraker is... you've got to bear in mind, to me, the Bond franchise is the novels.
Because you're a very, very specific Bond fan.
Yes. I like the Cubby Broccoli feel of some of the movies and the novels, and that's kind of it. But actually, just harking back to a different note, I'm amazed you didn't cite, or if you had known, I'm sure you would have, Mass Effect 2, or maybe Dragon Age, or Rock Band, or Crysis as EA games of recent years.
I had not actually linked them with their publisher. I didn't realise they were EA games.
Yeah, I was just flicking through the Wikipedia and started with a quote from John Carmack saying they're not the evil empire anymore.
See, that's kind of where I was coming from.
Where he admits they totally were,
Oh, yeah.
but they're not so much anymore. And talking, you've got to talk to their partners, people like Valve and Crytek. And I'm like, oh, fair enough, okay.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten that they had brought on one Peter Molyneux as their head of game development, or director of game development for Europe.
He's a loon.
But he's a genius.
Loons often are. Sometimes they run for parliament.
Maybe if they don't let him do the PR, it'll be brilliant.
My game is not for gamers.
Well, to be fair, that was Will Wright more than Peter Molyneux. Peter
I'm
Molyneux was just, this game will change gaming.
Will it? How will it do that?
Emotion.
Will it? How will it do that?
An emotional connection the like which you've never felt with a dog. Anyway.
That fucking dog. Anyway, should we explain the plot of the command? As you mentioned, there were 3 Command and Conquer universes.
as it were. All right, let's run them down. You've got what's commonly
Command and
referred to,
Conquer.
Command and Conquer, commonly referred to as the Tiberian universe, which is where there are 2 main forces in the world. You've got GDI, the Global Defense Initiative, who are
The
basically-
Americans.
Well, no, not so much.
Like the UN.
UN,
They are
NATO
the
type
UN,
job.
effectively. They are predominantly American voices, especially, but they are the good guys, air quotes there. And then you've got against them the Brotherhood of Nod, who are the foot troops of an ancient secret society who have designs on world domination, as they do. Then one day, I can't remember if it's a meteor or however it arrives, but there's this crystal.
It is a
called-
meteorite, yeah, that
A
smashes.
meteorite?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's
a crystal called Tiberium, which begins spreading across the world. And it's this alien crystal which actually leaches the essence, the nutrients and what have you, out of the ground around it and grows crystals. Kind of like not like a coral, it doesn't leach things, but in a similar sort of
like
way.
a weed, essentially.
Yeah, well, exactly like a weed, good call. And this thing is simultaneously the most useful mineral in the world, because you can break it down into its constituent parts and make pretty much whatever you want out of it, but it's actively destroying the Earth, leaching it of all its resources and what have you. And the plot follows GDI and Nod basically scrambling for resources and a way to control the Tiberium. Whereas Red Alert asks quite a common what-if question.
I don't know if it's that common, the what if question. What if Einstein went...
No. The question is, what if Hitler was killed before the Second World War?
Okay, yeah.
And the end result is that, in the plot, Professor Einstein goes back in time and eliminates Hitler from the timeline. Because he's Einstein, and somehow he became a superhero. So he goes back in time with his amazing device, the Chronosphere, or Chronosphere, yeah, as you'll hear him describe it in-game. And as a result, World War II never happens. The downside of this, from the game's perspective, is that the Soviet Empire is never really put to the test. It doesn't lose millions of men during the Second World War. And Stalin looks towards Europe with a hungry eye, and cue Hell March, opening animations, the Russians march on Europe. And so those two universes kind of march inexorably forward, with Tiberium becoming ever more important in the world, the struggle for land and actual normal resources becoming the predominant thing. Red Alert 2, where all of a sudden you had what's his name?
Tim Curry?
Not Tim Curry. Red Alert 2. I can't remember his name. Yuri? No.
Oh, Udo.
Yuri. What's the actor's name?
Udo
Kaya.
Kaya, that's it.
As Yuri, the mind-controlling psychic Russian with plans for world domination. I loved Red Alert 2 so much. But as those two kind of wore on, Westwood decided to introduce a third universe, based very much on our real world, called Generals. And Generals, if I recall correctly, used a very similar game engine to one of the later Dune games that they did, because they did another...
They did a remake, and it was essentially the same game engine as far as I can remember.
Yep. Quite good graphics for the time. And you had the USA, China, and the... GLA Global Liberation Army, was it?
Something like that,
Something like that. And basically the terrorists. And this, of course... This poor game became massively unpopular very quickly. What with terrorists being a major army and them using anthrax in a couple of their weapons. And
Suicide bomb trucks.
Suicide bomb trucks, yeah.
Angry mobs.
The angry mobs are awesome.
They really are.
But yeah, Generals enjoyed an incredibly long lifespan of one game and one expansion pack. And then we got the next Red Alert. Was it Red Alert 3 came after that? But kind of the...
well, then we got like Command & Conquer 3 and then... Yeah,
but I think the kind of the classic period of the Westwood RTS kind of ended with Generals, because that's when we came into. I think that was when the big takeover and the.
I think that was around that time. Yeah, I mean Red Alert 3 I did like for one thing, and that was the Eastern Empire.
The
George
addition of
Takei.
the Japanese
Exactly.
into it.
All your bases belong to
They
us.
brought George Takei and mechs into it. That's why I liked it.
This is where Red Alert 3... I know Red Alert 2 is where it started to get silly. Red Alert 3 was where it got damn silly.
I don't know, 2 did still have the giant squid
Sorry,
madness.
2 had giant squids. Red Alert 3
And bear cavalry?
had parachuting bear riflemen.
I thought the bears were in 2.
Nope.
No.
Only
Oh, they were
to
added for 3. Okay.
And
Okay,
then
yeah,
they
3
were
silly.
paratrooping bears. And of course the Japanese had like exploding dragonfly mechs, and
Yep. Bears are awesome, though.
bears are awesome.
You could say
That's
they
true.
were bearing arms.
I hate you. Did the animals have anything stupid in Red Alert 3?
In Red Alert 3, I don't remember.
Almost certainly.
They had Tanya again. Yeah, that's a point to make on the Command & Conquer series. All the girls wore catsuits. Except for a couple of the GDI ones, who were either wearing less than a catsuit or more, but it was somehow more revealing. Like,
Yes, what you
Lieutenant
said.
Eva in Red Alert 2 was wearing navy whites, but man were they tailored. Boy howdy.
I don't know, I remember there being plenty of female characters in most of the cutscenes that were just in uniform for
yeah,
GDI.
but they weren't the main characters.
No, they weren't, but
Exactly.
they were there. They weren't all the women, as you so
Red Alert
stressed.
girls. Oh, hush, you and your face. The Red Alert girls have always been some sort of prepubescent eye candy drawer of the games. to the point where Red Alert 3's got a chicken and miniskirt on the cover, if I recall correctly.
Yes, it does.
And it also had
Oh no, it's sort of Daisy Duke cut-off shorts
Okay.
and
for
thigh-high
the
boots.
American one. For the Russian one, it is a miniskirt. It's
No,
Russian.
that is the Russian one. Yeah,
You sure?
yeah.
Yeah, it's
So no,
the
the American
red
one
cover
did.
with the chick with the AK going. Rah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Oh, okay.
I know this because I'm looking at it.
Ah, okay.
1, he's wearing my clothes. 2, he's sitting in my seat. Right, so that is the plot of Command and Conquer. All of
And
them.
the silliness.
And the silliness.
Some of the silliness, sorry.
Yeah, there's plenty more silliness.
So, I mean, we've touched on the basics of the gameplay. It's a resource collecting RTS, base building, defense, what have you. We've touched on the plot of kind of the 3 main universes. That's it: Tiberian, Red Alert, and Generals. By Generals. So,
I'd love
What
to see
is-
another Generals.
I wouldn't.
No?
Generals to me seemed like an experiment which just didn't pan out. Reason being, it was modern world Command and Conquer. I think that's where the kind of it fell apart, because it was Command and Conquer Generals, and it took itself seriously.
Yeah, which is not what you do with Command and Conquer.
Oh, not even that. The other games have to be silly, but it's something that was like, oh, you know, we've got terrorists, we've got flamethrower tanks that burn people out, and it was kind of, I don't know, not nudging the horror of war angle, but trying to be more serious, but without really taking it fully in the direction of serious RTS. Like I
Yeah.
said, if you wanted to play something like that, you're better off playing Company of Heroes. It is World War II, so it's not kind of present-day military, but as far as a real-world inspired game, it's just a lot more fun.
Okay, yeah.
So the question that came up, after 15 years of Command and Conquer games, they are by now both classic and retro.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we still playing them? What makes them fun still?
Well, we often play Red Alert 2 networked, so you tell me. Why are we, us two, still playing them occasionally?
Because it's the only thing that would run on my laptop. But no, it's... Because now that I've got a computer which will run other things,
And you're still playing Red
I'm
Alert.
still playing Red Alert 2. I'm still playing Command and Conquer.
Because it's the only thing that will play on Jack's laptop.
I don't know, even just
No.
playing by myself. God, as soon as the words had left my mouth, I knew that was coming. Come on! I've been talking an awful lot this show.